Officer Maya Torres had always believed she understood courage. She had seen it in the trembling hands of victims who dared to speak, in the tired eyes of first responders who kept going long after exhaustion set in, and most of all, in the steady heartbeat of her loyal canine partner, Shadow, who never once hesitated when danger called. But on the night that changed everything, she discovered a version of courage so raw and selfless that it carved itself into her soul forever. The evening began as quietly as any other, city lights glowing like scattered fireflies across the skyline, the radio humming with uneventful dispatches, and Shadow sitting tall in the passenger's seat, ears perked, waiting. Maya reached over and scratched behind his ear, the place where he always leaned into her hand just a little more. One day, she whispered, "I'll retire you. We'll get a cabin near a lake. No sirens, no guns, no bad guys. Just peace." Shadow responded with a soft woof as if agreeing. She smiled, unaware that within the hour, he would rewrite the definition of love. The call came at 9:47 p.m., a suspected break-in at an abandoned warehouse known for gang activity. Officers requested backup, and Maya, being closest, responded immediately. As she pulled up to the warehouse, the air felt heavy, suffocating almost. The streetlights flickered, casting long shadows across cracked pavement. The building's broken windows looked like dark, unblinking eyes. She stepped out, adjusting her vest, while Shadow leapt to the ground with silent precision. The moment they approached the entrance, Shadow's body stiffened, an instinct she trusted more than any training. Before she could fully process, gunfire exploded from inside the warehouse. Bullets tore through the air, ricocheting off rusted metal. Maya ducked behind a concrete pillar, drawing her weapon. Shadow growled low, ready to move. "Stay," she ordered, but Shadow disobeyed. In the split second she leaned to return fire, Shadow launched himself in front of her. She heard the shots before she saw them strike, 3 deafening cracks that made her heart stop. Shadow staggered, his body jolting as bullets hit his vest, then his side, then his shoulder. Maya screamed his name, a sound that didn't feel like it came from her lungs but from the core of her existence. Shadow collapsed onto the concrete, whimpering, his dark fur quickly soaking in red. In that instant, nothing mattered, not the shooters, not protocol, not even her own life. She crawled to him, pulling his limp body into her arms. His eyes, once bright and alert, were clouded with pain. "Stay with me, boy," she whispered, her voice cracking. "Please, don't you dare leave me." Backup arrived within minutes, taking control of the suspects, but Maya didn't see or hear any of it. All her attention was on Shadow's shallow breaths. The paramedics who rushed over wore grim expressions, ones Maya had seen too many times. She refused to let them take him without her. She climbed into the ambulance and held Shadow's head in her lap as they sped to the emergency veterinary hospital. She talked to him non-stop, telling him stories, reminding him of the lake house she promised, begging him not to slip away. When they arrived, the staff immediately whisked him into surgery, leaving Maya soaked in his blood, trembling alone in the waiting room. Hours passed. Long, tortuous hours. Every second stretched like wire pulled too tight. She replayed everything she could have done differently, blaming herself until the weight of guilt nearly crushed her. Her uniform was stained, her hands shaking, tears drying in uneven streaks across her cheeks. And for the first time in her career, she felt truly powerless. Just as she buried her face in her hands, someone stood before her. She looked up, surprised. The man wasn't hospital staff. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with weathered features and piercing eyes. He wore a Navy SEAL jacket, one that wasn't new, but carried the marks of real service. "Are you Officer Torres?" he asked gently. She nodded, too exhausted to form words. "I'm Commander Luke Hale," he said. "I was nearby when the call went out. They said your K9 took fire protecting you." Maya swallowed hard, the memory sliced fresh again. "He shouldn't have," she whispered hoarsely. "It should have been me." Luke pulled up a chair, sitting across from her with a calm presence that felt strangely grounding. "You know," he said quietly, "I've seen men throw themselves onto grenades to save their team. I've seen soldiers shield strangers with their bodies. And every time, the ones they saved carried guilt. But you need to know something, officer. Bravery isn't logical. Love isn't logical. Shadow didn't jump in front of you because you failed. He did it because you mattered to him. Because you're his world. Maya pressed her lips together, tears burning her eyes again. He's just a dog, she said, though her voice begged to believe otherwise. Luke shook his head. No, he's a warrior. And warriors make choices we can't always understand. The raw honesty in his voice broke something open in her. For the first time, she allowed herself to breathe, not in relief, but in acceptance. She didn't know who this man was or why he cared, but there was something about him that felt steady. A lifeline in a night that had drowned everything else. As the hours continued to drag on, Luke stayed. He didn't talk much, but his presence was enough. At one point, he quietly handed her a bottle of water and a blanket the hospital staff had left behind, as if he sensed she wouldn't ask for anything herself. Eventually, the vet emerged. Maya shot to her feet. The doctor's face looked solemn but not defeated. Shadow made it through surgery, she said. But it'll be a long recovery. He was hit badly in the shoulder. He'll need rehabilitation, and his days as a canine officer might be over. Maya exhaled a breath she didn't realize she was holding, her knees nearly buckling. Luke caught her elbow instinctively, steadying her. Gratitude flooded her so intensely it felt like another kind of pain, sharp but beautiful. Can I see him? Maya asked. The doctor nodded. When she entered the recovery room, Shadow lay wrapped in bandages, hooked to machines, but alive. His chest rose and fell in slow, steady breaths. Maya stroked his head gently, tears dripping onto his fur. You did good, buddy, she whispered. You saved me. Now I'm going to save you. She stayed by his side until dawn painted soft streaks of gold across the sterile room. At some point, Luke appeared in the doorway with 2 cups of coffee and a quiet smile. Thought you might need this. She took the cup, feeling something shift inside her, a warmth she hadn't felt in years. Not romantic, not yet. Something deeper. Trust, connection, understanding. Over the next few days, Luke continued to show up. He helped Maya fill out Shadow's retirement paperwork, called in favors to secure top-tier medical supplies, and even paid, anonymously, for Shadow's long-term rehab when Maya's insurance refused to cover everything. When she confronted him about it, he simply said, "Heroes deserve more than the bare minimum," then changed the subject. Maya didn't push. Instead, she let the gratitude settle quietly into her heart. Shadow's recovery was slow, painful, and uncertain. Every day, Maya visited him before and after her shifts. Some days, she read to him. Other days, she sat silently, just letting him hear her presence. And on the mornings when her strength faltered, Luke somehow always showed up. Sometimes with breakfast, sometimes with nothing but the kind of words that made breathing a little easier. One evening, as Maya sat beside Shadow, stroking his fur, she confided in Luke. "I don't know who I am without this job," she admitted. "Being a K-9 officer, it's everything I've ever known." Luke nodded thoughtfully. "Maybe," he said, "but sometimes life forces us to become something new. Something we never imagined. And sometimes, that new version ends up saving us." Maya stared at Shadow, her heart swelling. "He's always been the brave one," she said. Luke shook his head. "Courage comes in many forms. Tonight, you're the one choosing to stay soft after being broken. That's bravery too." Weeks turned into months. Shadow regained the ability to stand, then walk, then eventually jog clumsily across the rehab yard with his tail wagging like it used to. The first time Maya saw him run again, even if only for a few steps, she burst into tears. The therapists clapped, Luke smiled proudly, and Shadow barked as if declaring victory over the world. And somewhere in those small, miraculous days, Maya realized that her heart was healing too. On Shadow's final medical checkup, the vet declared him officially retired and healthy enough to live a long, peaceful life. That night, Maya drove him to a quiet lake just outside the city, the same one she had always dreamed about. Luke followed in his truck, having been invited without hesitation. As the sun dipped below the horizon, turning the water into a sheet of molten orange, Maya knelt beside Shadow. "You kept your promise," she whispered. "You stayed." Shadow nudged her hand, warm and gentle. She turned to Luke. "Thank you," she said softly. "Not just for everything you did, but for being there. For seeing me when I felt invisible." Luke stepped closer, the last sliver of sunlight catching the faint scars along his jaw, reminders of battles fought, losses carried. "You saved yourself, Maya," he said. "Shadow gave you a reason. I just showed up." Maya looked back at the lake, at her dog sleeping peacefully, at the Navy SEAL who had entered her life when she needed someone the most. And for the first time since the gunshots shattered her world, she felt truly whole. Over time, Maya left active duty. She became a trainer for therapy dogs, dedicating her life to helping others feel the comfort Shadow once gave her. Shadow became the unofficial ambassador of the program, visiting children, veterans, and survivors, with the same gentle nobility that once helped her survive the darkest night. Luke stayed in her life, too, not as a savior, but as a partner, a friend, and eventually something much more meaningful. He became part of the family she hadn't even realized she was building. Years later, when people asked Maya how everything changed so drastically, she always gave the same answer: sometimes the world breaks so something more beautiful can be rebuilt. And when they asked about Shadow, the legendary canine who took bullets for his officer, she simply smiled and said, "He didn't just save my life. He showed me how to live it." In the end, the story of Officer Maya Torres, her brave canine Shadow, and the Navy SEAL who stepped in when everything fell apart became something whispered with reverence across precincts and military circles alike. Not because it was dramatic or heroic, though it was both, but because it reminded every person who heard it that kindness still existed, that selflessness still mattered, and that sometimes, the deepest wounds healed not through force, but through compassion. And somewhere by a quiet lake at sunset, a retired canine with a scarred shoulder lay with his head in his officer's lap, watching the world he nearly died to protect, a world that, because of love, courage, and unexpected generosity, had become brighter than ever.